What's up, guys? My name's Dean, or as most of you know me, Twisty, and it's time to wrap up around 15. Everything that went on, everything that went down. Let's go through it all. Taking a look at the ladder here. Huge top 8, which doesn't really matter with this bottom 8 anymore, I don't think. They're going to just be playing for picks at this stage. But the Hawks are game clear on top. West Coast a game clear of 7th position, so they are in 8th position. And then you've got 2nd through till 7th. All on 40 points, separated by percentage. 2nd, 3rd, and 4th are separated by about 2.5 goals worth of percentage. So 3 goals either way could be the difference between a home final, not in the top 4, or, you know, getting an away top 4 final. That's just ridiculous. So those sides, Geelong, the Giants, and the Swans, their percentage is obviously superior to every other side. So they're in pole position, really, if it gets to crunch time. And if someone can knock off the Hawks, then they'll drop 4 or 5 spots because their percentages isn't that great. But, gee, it's an interesting top 8. And you look at that bottom 10 and no one really jumps out at you that's any good. We'll get into all that in a moment. Thursday night's game with the West Coast Eagles and the Bombers, pretty much as expected. The Bombers started fairly well, but then sort of drifted away after that first quarter. West Coast winning by about 78 points in the end of the day. Joe Danaher kicked 3 goals for the Bombers, so that's not a bad sign if he's like improving himself. The problem for Joe Danaher is that he's got so many, like, he's got no one else in the forward line. At least last year, kind of had Hooker or someone else who could sort of help him out and not have him be the number 1 forward at, you know, age 20 or 21, however old he is. So he's got a lot of work to do, Joe, and hopefully he'll get better with the Bombers as they get better next year, next season. And as the West Coast, they just keep ticking along. McGinnity kicked 4 goals. The usual suspects, Kennedy was there as well, and I think Shuey kicked, not Shuey, Darling kicked a couple as well. So West Coast just ticking along nicely, but they still are yet to beat a side within that top 8. So that's got to be their undoing so far. Now we look at Friday night's game. Port Adelaide taking the Tigers season off completely with a 38-point win. Wingard, Broadbent both kicked a couple each for the Tigers. Rewalt, Lloyd, Vickery, and I think Short was the other goal kickers. Only 4 goal kickers for the Tigers for what was a pretty disappointing night. Now I didn't watch too much of the match, but pretty much you can gather the usual suspects were pretty good. I think Cochin got tagged really heavily by Kane Mitchell, so he did a bloody good effort. And yeah, I think Richmond, they have a lot of work to do. They have so many passengers, too many passengers. Me and my friends were saying this at the start of the year, and then we get a couple of wins on the board, and we're like, well, now they're doing okay. But it's still those mid-depth players that are in good form one week, terrible the next, and unless they can find that consistency, I don't see them playing for Richmond in years to come. So it'll be interesting to see how Richmond's season falls out. We won't know until the end of the season. I think Ben Griffiths has had like 1 good game this year, and he's been pretty poor otherwise. Same with Tyrone Vickery. So you either play Liam McBean and get the kid in, or you know, you're not going to play him ever, because now is the time that you can try him out. He's only played 2 or 3 games, hasn't kicked a goal yet, but give him a chance. Play McBean, play some of the other kids. Markov is pretty good. Get him involved. If Corey Ellis isn't injured, get him back in. Frioli's alright, get him back in. Connor Menadue's playing alright, so you just want them in. Just get the kids in, get them playing, get them doing something well. Alright, next game, it was actually Saturday. It was the early game. This was the first tip that I got right for the round after those first 3 games. Because I said, obviously, I got Essendon wrong. Anyway, St Kilda. Where to from here? Yes, where to from here for them? Like, they're up 1 week, down the next. Beat Geelong last week in a ripping game, and then just can't back that consistency up the next week against the Gold Coast Suns, even though I did see this coming. But I've highlighted some pretty poor kicking this weekend rather than some accurate kicking for this game. Tom Lynch, Coleman, 3rd place in the Coleman, kicked 1 goal 4 for the game for the Gold Coast Suns. For the Saints, Mav Weller, 1 goal 4, and Nick Rewalt, 0 goals 5. So between Weller and Rewalt, kicked 1 goal 9 from 10 scoring shots. 1 goal from 10 shots at goal between the two of them. So let's say they kick 5 of those. What is that? I mean, it's still not enough, but like they still lost by what, 40 points. Oof, I mean, like this, the accuracy was pretty damn bad there. But the Saints, they got to get their consistency right for next year. Hopefully, some of their players will come good when they get in that 50, 100 game bracket. So they'll be much better for the run home there. And I think that they can probably just get 7 or 8 wins this year. Obviously, they've equaled the 6 they got last year, so they're in a good spot to keep improving themselves year after year, and next year try and push for the finals. And the Gold Coast Suns, they get a lot of players back, and then they're suddenly a good team again. Next year again, it'll be a question of whether or not the Gold Coast can hold up without injuries, because people say that they might not have much depth. Well, the problem for the Gold Coast is they lose so many players. They've only got 25 fit players that they can actually play. So they've got everyone in their 25-man squad, the only players that can play because they were all injured. So if they have a good run with injury, they can definitely cause a few upsets next year. Now, let's look at the Coleman medal race. Buddy Franklin, 3 goals ahead of Josh Kennedy. Buddy kicked 5 goals for, but we'll get to that in a moment. Lynch there again, the 1 goal for, could have got himself a little bit higher in this ladder here. Jenkins on 40, Betts on 38, Rewald 35, and then Hogan and Walker 34. And everyone, like those guys are too far back. I think Jenkins is probably the furthest back that could still win it with a bit of miracle work there. But it looks like it's between Kennedy, Franklin, and Lynch will be the interesting one to see how it goes. But I don't think anyone will get to 100 goals this season. I think maybe 85 will probably be the max we see, even with finals included. Now, let's look at the best game of the round. I only watched the last 5 minutes, and boy, what a good 5 minutes it was. Kept the score checked. I was out and about at a Foley Bulldogs house, so they were all pretty happy with this result. But a 4-point win to the Dogs. Stringer kicked 3, Libba kicked 2, and Johannesson the winning goal for the Swans. They just weren't as accurate as the Dogs with their chances. 11-13 to 13-5. Franklin kicked 5-4, Parker 3-2. So they had their opportunities, Sydney. If they were just a little bit more accurate with their chances, they would have been in a better spot. But what a story, Johannesson, out with a hamstring. Came back a lot earlier than a lot of people thought, and now he's come in one game, understood where to go, got the space, and just found the easier shot at goal than Bontempelli. But I still think Bont would have probably kicked the goal that he had the shot. But Sydney, again, with their defensive error in the last minute, it's just a big hole in that 50. So they're going to need to fix that up come finals time, because that's twice they've done it now. First time was against Richmond. Got a bit unlucky with a couple of bounces there, but it's happened again with the Dogs. So they've got to be clutch, more clutch in those final moments, instead of just being sort of just let's try and hold on, because I think that's probably what caused their downfall once again. But the Dogs, man, the Dogs, they're in good stuff. They can still make the top 4. I thought I'd kind of ridden them off for the top 4, but I think they'll probably win 7 or 8 of their next 8. So they'll be favourites for 7 of their next 8 anyway. Whether or not they can win them is another thing. But I think about at the start of the year, I had about 5 or 6 teams sitting on 6 and 16. Which is crazy, because that might actually happen because of how close the top 8 really is. Never know what could happen. And this was the worst game of the round, of course. This was Carlton and Collingwood. I think a lot of people found this really terrible to watch. 2-goal win to the Pies in the end, 8-9, 57 to 6-9, 45. Jack Silvani made his debut as well for the Blues. Did a couple of nice things for them as well. But Collingwood, once again, a game that you would have expected them to win at the start of the year. But where to for them as well, because they're sort of in a similar position. All these bottom 10 sides are sort of in really similar positions of like trying to push up there, but they're not quite good enough to push into that top 8. So I think next year it'll be an interesting like trade period and stuff, because that bottom 10, I think this is possibly where you'd want like the playoffs system to like come into effect, where the top 8 play finals and then the bottom 10 or whatever play something else, because right now we're really just playing for positions in the top 8, because we know that it's set. It's been set for probably since round 5, which is crazy to think that that early on in the season we knew which teams were going to make the finals and which teams weren't. So Just, an interesting thought for fixturing as well. And West Coast, the fact that they're sitting pretty in the top 8 just proves to you like that they are, they've beaten every single team below them, but they've lost all 5 of their matches to like top 8 sides. They haven't beaten a top 8 side yet. So they're probably the weakest link in there, and I think North Melbourne as well probably can't win it. So they're the 2 sides that probably can't win in that top 8. But let's look at the final game. This was on Sunday. This was yesterday, actually. The Crows, 22-point winners over Melbourne. Overcame an onslaught from the D's in that second quarter of 8 goals. I think 8 goals close to in a row or something. But it was a very interesting second half as well. Very close, and then Adelaide sort of kicked away midway through that final quarter. Douglas kicked 3, Betts kicked 3, Walker kicked 3, and for the D's, Garlett kicked 4, Hogan 3, and Watts 3. So, a number of good goal kickers there. Melbourne, again, they're good when they're good, but if they still need to just knock off a top quality side, which is something that they haven't. Oh no, they beat the Giants this year, but that was very early on in the season. It was like a round 1. They were pretty lucky to win that game as well. So if they can knock off another top 8 side come the end of the year, I think that's probably a success for Melbourne. Or even if they can get to 10 wins by the end of the year, but you still need 14 to make the 8, I think, which is quite absurd and shows the skill level of our top 8 this year. But let's look at that top 8 v top 8 graph once again. The only real changes: Sydney went to 4 and 3, and the Dogs went to 3 and 4. So again, interesting to see which sides are going to push forth through the finals. This isn't the official top 8. This is the top 8 v top 8 top 8. That makes sense. Really doesn't. But that's it for the wrap up this week. Hopefully you guys did enjoy it. Even with only 6 games, we still managed to have a really long video. So thank you guys for watching. A big thumbs up. Until next time, I'll see you guys on Friday or Thursday for the preview, if I can get it done in time. So we'll wait and see, but I'll see you guys over there then.